coming on Christmas. They're cutting down trees. They're putting up reindeer and singing songs of joy.
Joining Rotary wasn't something I set out to do, but when it was presented to me, it quickly made sense. Service above self was a familiar theme from my childhood. I wasn't aware that one of Rotary's core objectives was to eradicate polio, but it resonated with me. One of the key things that struck me was that it was something that we were helping to fix over there. Young members like myself had little to no experience with polio and therefore no appreciation of its impact on North America in the 40s and 50s. My grandmother, Naomi Dixon, contracted polio when she was 38, so I asked her daughter, my Aunt Doreen, to share the story with me, recorded here in her own words.
I love those dear hearts and gentle people who live in my hometown, because those dear hearts and gentle people will never...
All the swimming pools were closed. You couldn't do gatherings of people because nobody knew what was causing it. So isolate people, don't try not to get together in groups because whatever. And the outbreaks were everywhere. Like there's a guy downstairs, Bud Smith, who his dad was with Smith Ambulance, which was quite well known back in the day. And he said they were always going out to places like Wainwright and all over the country bringing in polio patients. You had to have iron lungs for many of them because once that began to get into that area, then they couldn't breathe. We're on our way back to Grand Prairie. And at that time, you had to go around by Lesser Slave Lake through those little towns like Foster, Canuso, and Drift Pile, and whatever. And we were having car trouble. So we stopped at, I think it was Foss, because it was right near the lake. And there was a cold wind coming off the lake. And Dad said to Mom, why don't you take the kids and go into the hotel? So Mom said, I'd rather just wait. But she got a chill. So I was very much Mama's girl. Like I had to be with her or I was just in a panic. And so, terribly shy. Anyhow, I wanted to sit on Mom's knee. And she couldn't even hold me. Anyhow, we got home. And we had one doctor in Grand Prairie, Dr. Girth O'Brien. So he came over to the house and looked at Mom and said, I don't know what it is, but it isn't polio anyway, and left. Mom said to Dad, okay, help me out to the living room. I want to see if I can still walk. Got to the living room. He took his hands away and she started to go down and he grabbed her, and that was the last time I saw her walk. So the polio was gradually creeping up. So it was going right up into her. Well, she was originally paralyzed from the shoulders down. So at that point, they decided to put her in the iron lung. Now, the woman, the wife of the shoe store owner, Mrs. Pronovo, died in the lung the night before Mom went in. They, of course, only had one lung. And they put Mom in the lung, and they had a rubber collar to seal the situation, because The lung itself looked like a coffin. Anyway, they got her. They were putting her in the lung, and the doctor phoned Dad and said, if you want to see your wife alive, get right up here. And so then Dad went up to the hospital, and just prior to his getting there, they had put this collar on her and zipped it up. And she said, "It's too tight, I can't breathe." Well, it has to be tight. And at that point, Dad walked in, and she said to him, "I can't breathe, it's too tight." So he unzipped it, and he said, "Okay, I need a knife here. I'm going to enlarge this collar." "Oh, you can't touch that. That's hospital equipment." My dad said, "I don't care. I'll get you another. I'll get you 10. But she has to breathe." So Mom said, she said, "I always wondered if Mrs. Pronovo had died that way." She said, "It just was such a terrible feeling to know that you could, that would be the end." They decided that they would move her to the Mewburn Pavilion of the University Hospital. And we were sworn to secrecy. Do not tell anybody that your mother's going on that plane. There'll be nobody else on the plane, right? And I think they had to take out like 3 seats to put her in. So then she was in the Mewburn Pavilion for, I would say she was in there for about 8 weeks or 10 weeks. And we lived with Grandma and Grandpa and went to Macaulay School. She was in a ward with 18 others, or 17 others, wall to wall. It was just terrible. And she said Dr. Mewburn, who was an old army doctor, would come in, and they would put them on fracture boards and prop their feet up so there wouldn't be foot drop. And so it enormous pain because they had full feeling. It wasn't like a back injury where there's no feeling. She had full feeling always. So and Mom could tolerate a lot of pain, but that was just unbelievable. They didn't know what to do. They were totally stymied on it. So then she came to to Grandma and Grandpa's, and they had a hospital bed in the front room, and she was there for maybe a month. So Dad was back in Grand Prairie doing his normal work of 17 elevators in the Peace River country, one-man show. And then once a month he would drive down to Edmonton to see how everything was. So that was a 12 to 14 hour drive if the roads were good. 16 maybe if they were bad. Gravel. Lovely. Anyway, Dad just kept that up. And then when he found out that Grandma didn't feel like she could do it any longer, then he got busy and he found that there was a lawyer and his family moving from Edmonton to Grand Prairie. And he had a house for sale in Edmonton. So Dad arranged to trade houses with him for the foreseeable future, so that the Logans lived in our house and we lived in the Logan house, which was over almost on Strathern Drive there in Forest Heights. So we lived there for the school year. And Herb had to take responsibility at a young age. Like he was 13, 14. So he had a lot of responsibility. Because Dad was gone usually most of the week. Dad would always get the company car in the wintertime for a month. And they said you can travel with it, you can do whatever. Gave him a month's holiday. So when Mom was released from the hospital, Dr. Mewburn said to Dad, now, don't start looking for cures, because there are none. Unfortunately, we don't come with spare parts, so don't go looking and spending your money on whatever. And of course, Dad didn't listen to him. So the first trip that we made was to California, to Bakersfield, back in about 1950. And I mean, traveling from the Peace River country to California was quite a deal in those days. Everybody's doing it now, but people would look and say, oh, the Dixons are going away again. In the middle of the winter, of course, or in the spring. And anyway, Mom said this doctor had said that he could cure polio, and he would give you 2 injections, and for $100, 1950, when a motel room was $6 for the 4 of us. Anyway, so $100. So she got the 2 injections, and she said they were very painful. She said the only thing they ever cured for me was an ingrown toenail. So, anyway. But another year, my mom had written to Eleanor Roosevelt to see, because we had heard about Warm Springs, Georgia, where there was some help for polio patients. And Mrs. Roosevelt wrote back a really nice letter to Mom. By this time, Franklin had died. So we decided in I think it was about 1952 or 3, to make a trip to Warm Springs, Georgia. So your dad was, I think, okay, he would have been 15, I think. Well, we got to Warm Springs, and you couldn't get near the place. The cars and the people, and I mean, it was just flooded with people. So we didn't do that, and we got to see a lot of the state, and made a lot of trips to some of the old southern mansions. One of her friends said to her, why don't you try teaching piano? You could do grade 1. And Mom said, yeah, but I can't do the pedals. She said, it doesn't matter. People in grade 1 don't need to be using the pedals. So Mom put out her notification. I don't know how we did that. Word of mouth or whatever it was. Well, I think that first year she had 30 children. Well, that became the joy of her life, because she just loved those little kids, and it was giving her something meaningful to do. And she just did everything she could to encourage them and help them, and it was wonderful. And it was the best therapy for her.
In every job that must be done, there is an element of fun. You find the fun, and snap! The job's a game. And every task you undertake becomes a piece of cake, a lark, a spree. It's very clear to see that a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, the medicine go down, medicine go down. Just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down in a most delightful way.